And today I'm in the beautiful bookshop that is Waterstones Piccadilly, and I'm going to tell you about three books which are very special to me. And the first book I'm going to choose is 1984 by George Orwell. It's a book that needs very little introduction. It's the story of Winston Smith, a minor functionary in the Outer Party, the organisation which controls the superstate of Oceania. It's the story of his love affair with a woman called Julia and his disillusionment and rebellion from the party. It's a book that works on many levels. It is a love story, a story of rebellion, but it's also a lesson into the evils of propaganda and what happens when power becomes an end in itself. And my next choice is this. London Fields by Martin Amis. It is set at the turn of the millennium and it features Nicola Six, a woman who is out to orchestrate her own murder. Nicola is a vortex of sex and self-loathing, intent on achieving her own destruction. All that's in doubt is who will the murderer be? Will it be petty criminal and darts fanatic Keith Talent, or suave, debonair but ineffectual Guy Clinch? It's narrated by American author Samson Young, who himself is dying of cancer. Indeed, death, be it the narrator, the protagonist, the millennium, or the planet, seems to be a central theme of the book. And my final choice is a book that was actually recommended to me by my then girlfriend, now wife. It is this one, Jhumpa Lahiri's The Namesake. It tells the story of Ashok and Ashima Ganguly, two tradition-bound Calcutta-born Indians and their emigration and struggles to build a new life in America. Hot on the heels of their arranged marriage, Ashok and Ashima find themselves in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where Ashok settles into American life far easier than Ashima, who longs for home. They have a child, and in true Bengali fashion, they name him after a Russian poet called Gogol. And the book really tells about Gogol's struggle, one with his own identity, and two with his funny name. Lahiri brings great empathy to the story of Gogol as he stumbles through the first generation experience, the clash of cultures, the conflicts of assimilation, and she does it with such a light touch and with beautiful language. As the son of first generation immigrants to the UK, this book spoke to me in a way that few others ever have.
So I'm intrigued about you as an accountant.
I like the way you introduced me as an accountant. Half the audience have switched off already because of that. But
Well,
thank
I'm
you.
wondering whether you were driven into writing because of some embezzlement scandal.
No, I always wanted to write. I did. I mean, even at school, I wanted to do an English degree, and I remember being in the pub with one of my English teachers and him telling me, "Look, if you end up doing an English degree, you'll end up teaching snotty kids like yourself in a school somewhere." And between that and my father saying, "Oh, so you want to write? Very good, but first get proper job." So I decided to wait, and well, I didn't decide to wait. I decided to do economics, and then for my sins, I became an accountant, which I did for 20 years almost. I reached the ripe old age of 39 and three quarters. And I thought, if I don't try now, I never will. I'll never do it. What had upset me when I was growing up was that, and I don't know what it's like in Australia, but when I was growing up in Scotland, we didn't learn about British colonial history. We learned more about German history and Italian history in the 1920s and 30s than we did about British history, especially, British history in what was then the empire and the colonies. And for me, as the son of Indian immigrants, my father looked at a map and said, what's the coldest, wettest place I can raise a family? So he moved from Calcutta to Glasgow. For me, growing up, it was really a search for identity because I would go to school and I would learn something, and I would come home, and my dad would say, "Oh, it's very good. It's wrong." And then he would give me a completely different version of history. And maybe you had this as well. When you grow up
Yeah.
between cultures, you have this schizophrenia because you learn one side of a story, but you
Yeah.
come home and you learn a different side of the story. And sometimes one side is right and sometimes the other side is right. But what you learn from a very early age is that you cannot trust what you are
Mm.
told 100% by people in authority, be it teachers, the governments, hospitals, whatever. Which is why I think a lot of people don't understand why ethnic minority communities have such a reticence about talking to the police or even, getting vaccines, because in the past, our people have been experimented on. So
Yeah.
you tell these stories, and a lot of that filters through. Um,
Mm.
and so you realize at an early age that there is this other side of the story that we don't talk about in this country. So the two of them set out on this case, and I wrote 5,000 words of it, and then I got scared again. I thought, oh my goodness, this is nonsense, and I put it in a drawer. And that would have
Yeah.
been the end of it had it not been for me seeing this competition in the Telegraph. Looking for new crime writers, and all they wanted was this first 5,000 words of a novel, which appealed to me because I was lazy and I'd already done the work, so I didn't have to do very much. I just had to tidy it up, and I wrote a two-page synopsis, and I sent it away. And then 3 months later, I got an email saying, "Congratulations, you've won. We're going to publish your novel." Except I didn't have a novel. I had these 5,000 words, and that was about it. And that was the beginning of it, and that became A Rising Man. Now, to answer your plotting question, I tend to start with an outline, a two-page skeleton of what I think the beats of the book will be. And then I will probably sketch out the first third in a bit more detail. I'll probably do 4 or 5 pages on that. And then I'll start writing. I'll start writing the chapters. And when I get to about that third point, I'll flesh out the next third in a bit more detail so I know. And quite often the characters have decided they're not going to do what I want anyway. So they'll be like, why are you still alive? You should be dead. I was supposed to kill you a couple of chapters ago. And so, but they work their way through. And then that final third, pulling everything together again, I'll do a 4 or 5 pages and then hopefully bring everything together and write that final third. So that's how I tend to write. I'd like to say that it works really smoothly, but it doesn't. It's a mess. I'm useless at plotting and writing. So tell me, how do you do it then, Solari?
Well, I think I start like you do. I literally Google a year. So I write in the 30s rather than the 20s. So I'll Google 1933 and see what's happening around the world in 1933, see if any of that sort of inspires me to uh, use that as the background or the scaffolding of the book. And I also have things I want to say, things I want to have conversations about. And they're usually contemporary things like with you, but there's always parallels in history. And history is a really good lens by which you can, or a method by which you can deliver a polemic without sounding preachy, because it's in the past, and people hopefully gather that you're talking about the present, but they don't need to be confronted by that. But then after that, I'm a pantser. I just sit down and start writing.
Oh, I
Um,
like that.
and,
I'm
and
impressed.
yeah, it's just
I tried pantsing book four, Death in the East, and it became a dog's dinner. It was just, oh, I had to go back to plotting. So I have tremendous respect for pantsers. I don't know how you do it, like writing without that safety net.
I think we're just chronically lazy and chronically optimistic that it'll all turn out in the end. There's Banerjee and Wyndham. How did they appear to you? Like, did they apparate and they were there, or did you tease them out of the plot?
I have to be honest with you, and people don't believe me when I say this. I was in the gym, sitting in the jacuzzi, and they literally, because I spent when I was at the gym, most of the time I spent in the jacuzzi, and they came to me. Sam came to me pretty quickly. Sam came to me as Sam Wyndham, and I knew who he was the minute he appeared. And Surin came literally within a minute after.
Okay.
In terms of who he was, and I think the reason is that really they're just two sides of me. To be honest with you, Surin is the more intelligent of the two.
Mm.
He's the intellectual. He's the one that carries Sam a lot of the time. Um, but he's in this position where, by dint of the color of his skin,
Mm.
he will always be the subaltern. He'll always be the junior in that relationship. Um, and that, I think, is one of the curious things about this. How do you maintain friendship, this relationship, when one is hobbled and knows that they're
Yeah.
hobbled, and when they realize that, when that knowledge and that comes to them, at first he doesn't feel that, but as the books go on, he will feel that, and it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
They were both so completely natural, and you know what I really loved about it was that you didn't try to make them too different. So they're friends, of course they're going to have some similarities, and the easy way would have to been to make them diametric opposites, but they weren't. They were obviously distinct human beings, but you could understand why they were friends, and what they saw in each other.
No, I write what I want to write, and I write about what angers me. So if I'm angry about something, I'll write about it. And I found that the historical novel is a good way of dealing with current issues, because I think when we write historical novels, what we're really doing is holding up a mirror, and we're looking at our own time through allegory. While killing people, which is always good, I found that the best way to make a point is by killing people in novels, and it's working quite well so far. Well, my two central characters are an Englishman called Sam Wyndham and an Indian called Sat Banerjee. Unfortunately for them, they are just two parts of me. So Sam is my British, maybe my more cynical, my older side, and Sat is my more optimistic, my younger, my Indian side. And so really sometimes they're in conflict and sometimes they work together, and that's like the two sides of my personality. So in terms of those two characters, it's very easy, because writing those two characters is just therapy. It's cheaper than paying for a psychiatrist. I just write these two characters to deal with my problems. Two pieces of advice. One, don't show anybody what you're writing till you have written it down, all of it. The minute you show your work to a friend or a partner or whatever, you lose some of that impetus to keep going. So just write the whole thing. And the second thing I would say is have fun. You never know, if this is going to be the start of a career, then you will have to produce book after book after book. This is your first chance to write something. Have fun writing it. We have an expression. It's a cathedral in my head, and it's a shed when I write it down. And my job in editing is to take that shed and turn it into a greenhouse, at least. And that's my objective.